With us in studio, we have Ilsa Grabe, Communication and Engagement Manager at Heineken, who is also representing the Advertising Media Association of South Africa, and Dr. Ludi Koekemoer, author of Promotional Strategy. He's the former CEO of the AAA School of Advertising and MBA Advisor to Monash, South Africa. And joining us on Skype from Ghana is Raghav, Executive Director at Transnational Academic Group in Ghana. Let's start our discussion, Ludi, with you. You have had a lifelong involvement in advertising and communications industry, both as an agency man, but more recently in education. How do we go about attracting talent? What have we been doing in the past? What should we be doing in the future? And I know you've been involved in this process in Europe and North America. What are other people doing elsewhere that we aren't doing?
I'm not so sure that we are doing anything different from what other people are doing. I think the common problem is awareness. There's a total lack of awareness, and I'm blaming the school system for this, of career opportunities. If you talk to scholars, and when I was at AAA, we did that extensively. You talk to them about careers and they will play back teacher, doctor, lawyer. Nobody ever mentioned that they wanted to be in advertising or in media. Some will say marketing, but they don't even know what marketing means.
It's worse than that, Ludi. I mean, I'm a former school teacher myself, and I've been involved with some schools, and advertising is still taught as part of the English syllabus, and it's taught in terms of the negative manipulation of advertising. So it's even worse than that. We're starting in a negative space in that regard.
That's quite interesting that you say that, there's a lack of awareness. I'll be quite keen to find out from Raghav in Ghana, because they started the Lancaster University in Ghana about 4 years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago, and some of the programs that they offer in marketing and media and advertising. So I'm quite keen, Raghav, as to what motivated you to start with that curriculum first? I mean, you could have started with anything. Everybody goes into banking, finance. It's sexy, it's easy, and one of your earlier modules are on marketing. Was that also informed by this issue about lack of awareness of career opportunities in marketing?
Actually, just to actually take a step back, it's something which we've seen ever since we started our business of education in 2008. About 70% of students actually end up doing something else than they actually studied while they're in university. And occasionally students don't want to study in a specific program which is related to just marketing, because it limits their options of what they can do after university. So what people are finding is that they prefer to do like a general business degree with a specialization in marketing or accounting or finance. So there's never really been too many direct majors which just says, a bachelor of like an undergraduate program in marketing, or, obviously there have always been programs in media and journalism, and that's something which we've been specializing in one of our campuses in Dubai since 2008. But when it comes to marketing, for a university to offer that degree program, you can't just run a program as a standalone course. There's a specific amount of work which goes in what the academics do in terms of research, building research profiles, because curriculum has to be research informed. It can't just be a textbook which someone developed in the 80s and 90s, and now they want to teach that to a completely different set of students teaching at campuses in Ghana, Dubai, South Africa, wherever it is. So I think the industry is also evolving where students, marketing, media, advertising has developed so much that, if you just think about what, everyone in the studio has been in advertising for a long time, and you must have remembered the days where, when you have to send out a press release, you just send out a piece of paper to newspapers and they cover it. And if you think about someone, I just heard an interview of the CTO from Snapchat, and he says nowadays, advertising has become visual content, and it's not about a means of communication rather than a piece of content around which communication actually happens. So that's what Snapchat or something like that has actually become. So it's quite interesting. It's you have to kind of understand that students are, they've got young minds. They're graduating from high schools in the 5th gear, as everyone was saying in our studio discussion before. They're learning new technologies. A lot of it has got to do with bringing in corporates into the classroom, making sure that students can do projects while they're in school to get them interested in advertising and marketing if they're just studying a general business degree.
That's interesting, but what struck me is when you said 70% of the learners end up working in a different area compared to what they studied in. So now I'm worried that it means that we're actually going to study, we're still going to struggle with talent, because when they graduate, they're not exactly going to go into marketing, they're going to go into something else. So we're then going to continue to have this problem, aren't we, Raghav?
Yes, I mean, definitely. But I mean, that's what I was saying was, when students study, that's why they prefer to do a general business degree so that they've got some bit of knowledge across a broader area, but the internships, career opportunities, or engagements they get with corporates while they're in school is actually what, would generate a larger interest for them to move to working in a specific industry such as marketing or advertising or social media, if you know what I mean.
So let me just pick up the discussion there. Mention was made of young minds, and
that's you and I, Colin.
Yeah. When I came into advertising, I came into it on the strength of a speech I gave at my wedding, where a certain executive in attendance said in a letter, if you can speak that much nonsense in public and get away with it, you'll probably have a good career in advertising, and I have.
I've heard of people finding wives at weddings. You are finding jobs, advertising jobs.
But it's like an episode out of Mad Men. If you talk rubbish, you'll succeed. Now, I mean, we've moved on from there. You've been in this industry for a decade. I've known you virtually from day one. What attracted to you to this industry?
So I think, we were all talking about the lack of awareness that the industry exists. I had this dream of going into marketing, but I had no idea about every other opportunity around the industry. So both on the advertising creative side and of course the media side. But employee advocacy, I think, is the biggest thing that drew me into the industry. And I think, again, it's everybody in the industry's responsibility to talk about all the different opportunities. Linked into that, because it's such a dynamic industry, there's so many different types of roles. So social media managers didn't exist, not even when I started studying advertising and media.
And even 3-4 years ago,
exactly.
If you think about it.
Yeah, so attracting diversity of talent on an ongoing basis is also something that we need to think about, because there may be data scientist roles that are going to become more and more relevant, and maybe a buying role in media becomes less relevant in the next couple of years. So that's a big question in my mind, is how do we also gear up for this changing roles and opportunities?
Look, we're also we're going to talk a little bit later on about retaining talent, and everyone has got their own retention objectives. So you've been in an agency, you've become a marketer. So the agency was the route through to becoming a marketer. 40 years ago, if you were a really good marketer, it was the route to becoming an agency person. It is a complete 180-degree switch in terms of the direction. So, Ludi, if I can then just come back to you.
Should we take a break? But no, let's take a quick break, and then we come back.
Cool.
I think I'd love to explore this concept a bit more, of this young mind, this mobility of talent today. And I'm quite struck when you, as you said, it reminded me that it is true that titles, careers are changing constantly. What was the talent required last year is no longer required this year. Then you alluded to that. But let's take a short break, and we'll get back to that topic again. Welcome back. Ilsa, I found it quite fascinating, that concept of talent changing constantly, and it got me thinking, how do you train for that, Ludi? How do you train for a career which did not exist 3 years ago, or is not even existing this year, and you are putting me on a 3-year degree or a 4-year degree to prepare me for something that may not be there?
Thebe, it sounds like Mission Impossible. But, I think...
Wasn't a good movie, though.
One thing that we need to say to each other is that I think South Africa is particularly privileged to have 3 advertising schools. And make no mistake, they are 1 or 3 of the better schools in the world. Now, what the 3 advertising schools have done very successfully over the years, and yes, there were criticism, but I firmly believe that the 3 schools have done a stunning job by fighting this whole thing about theory, which government wants you to do in the degrees, and to do theoretical knowledge as well as practical application. So if you look at the three schools, they have actually done the application and they teach them skills to a large extent. And the same thing will have to apply now, but it's not going to happen through the formal education system. There is no way that it can happen, because in order to change your curriculum, you need to go to government and get their approval, and you're not going to get it fast. But the world is changing so fast. If we look at disruptive innovations, if we look at the trends, if you look at the new consumer, I call them the me generation, the ones that we are talking about, who love themselves. They grew up with technology. They don't know a world without technology. So you need to train them via the technology that is second nature to them.
Raghav, I'd like to just pose the question to you.
And just to pick up a point before, I mean, there was a very negative attribute to universities not being able to change in time with students. And what's quite actually interesting, it's not actually what content you teach them in classrooms, but we focus on critical thinking, in which you should be able to apply it, whether it's to accounting, finance, marketing. So it's about getting students to think critically and analyzing and being innovative about whatever they're applying themselves into. So yes, things will change and develop and keep evolving, but the students, because of the way they think and how they approach projects or issues or new technology, is what will keep making them progress. So it's about enabling them with the tools which you need them to think critically to be able to move forward.
Irrespective of what content it is. I kind of like that. I kind of like that it is not so much the content, but the ability to be able to assimilate and to take in any type of content. So I think, do you agree with him, Ludi?
I totally agree. No, I totally agree. There's two things. The one is to have a wider perspective and to enable people and to empower people to learn the new tricks. Now that comes from universities. If you look at what's happening in the United States, you do not have a 3-year degree, you have a 4-year degree. The first 2 years, you study a whole lot of stuff. You can do religion, economics, music, you can do what you like. And then the last 2 years, you specialize in marketing or advertising or media planning or whatever the case may be. So you enable people in the first 2 years, you lay the foundation through critical thinking, through innovative thinking, and you develop their creative skills and so on, and then you develop them from there. But if we're talking about cloud analytics, that's not going to happen at university. That's going to happen through mentoring from somebody who knows what they're talking about. And what we shouldn't forget is that in advertising, marketing and media, your IT specialist is going to play a more significant role rather than your traditional marketer.
Yeah, if I could just comment about that with you, Ilsa, I mean, it's really interesting that we discussed in one of our earlier shows that the #1 agency in the world is Accenture. So what we've had is a bunch of auditors who have now become the #1 ad agency, which speaks to the whole aspect of analytical thinking. You have a really heavy involvement through AMASA, the Advertising Media Association, with training. Are we equipping people for that kind of a role as consultants rather than as good old-fashioned ad agencies or media agencies?
I think we're starting to talk about it. I don't think that we're structuring agencies quite yet to deal with that. So you had mentioned that we should no longer be agents but consultants, like any other strategic consultant to a business. I do think that agencies, marketers need to take more responsibility in welcoming interns, in allowing them to experience the agency. I know that I've done a lot of that kind of work, so that we can start showing the youth that there are different opportunities. Data scientists are definitely the future. There's going to be a huge element of needing people that really understand coding, software, data, but still the ability, that human element, to draw the insights from that.
So to leave algorithms to do what algorithms do best, train people regarding the variables that go in the front end of the algorithm and how to intelligently interpret what comes out the back end. But at the moment, it seems to me we're still trying to teach people to do the work that algorithms do, except they do them faster, better, smarter, all that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And I think there's still a sense of fear, because it's not everybody understands algorithms and coding and data, so it's complicated. But it's no more complicated than it ever was before when you were using a manual AMPS book. Now it's just, really clever algorithms shooting out pieces of data. So the role has slightly changed, but not drastically so.
Well, we've got a challenge in our hands, don't we? A recent survey by Careers in Africa found that the top 3 things that employers are looking for, or that employees are looking for, they are looking for jobs where they can make an impact. They're looking for jobs where they can move around, and they're looking for jobs where the leaders are inspiring. So it's all those things other than how to do things. Yep. So it's almost schools and academic institutions have to change their models to train the untrainables. Passion.
And Ludi, let's come back to you. We're talking about schools and universities changing their models. How do we go about changing that? Is part of the problem we still have a classroom mentality? I must go to a lecture, I must listen to a person. If we look at the proliferation of alternatives, lynda.com, Coursera, there's tons and tons of e-learning stuff. I know you're involved with the rejuvenation of the chartered marketer qualification or certification for the Marketing Association. What do we do to just make it more attractive, more compelling?
I think the one thing that is happening at the moment is that we need to realize that the challenge is great. We sit with a shortage of skills. We need to train those people. We need to give them an opportunity to live the joy of having a wonderful career. And yes, the argument of money comes in again, because the moment you have a shortage, your better people are mobile. They get stolen. And what academic institutions are doing is to try and adapt to the challenges of the new world. If we look at the trends, if we look at the innovations that are happening, we're all saying, but all these wonderful platforms, and you mentioned a couple, there are many, many more, where you can actually study online for free at Harvard, yes, Stanford, Yale, yeah, Oxford, MIT. I mean, we're throwing out the top names of the top 10 universities in the world, and you can actually study for free. All you need to do is, at the end of your study, when you've completed your course, you pay a fee up to $49 and you get your certificate. Now, if that is happening, and there are thousands and thousands of these available to you, why should you go to a university and spend an obscene amount of time and energy and money to acquire a qualification, which everybody will tell you is too theoretical?
I think we're probably going to need to get Raghav. Raghav, we need you back to comment on that.
Because Ludi says you are irrelevant.
Yeah, and obscene amounts of money attached to...
$49 for a degree at MIT. I'm registering tomorrow.
Well, you've got to do your homework, Thebe. You've still got to do your homework. Doesn't matter.
Raghav, is that a challenge for you?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting comment there. But, when they put up a course once on building your own car, or doing one of these challenges, maybe 1 million people will sign up, but maybe only 1,000 people will actually complete the program. So online education is unique, it's great, you're getting the free content, but how are you going to keep getting the students engaged so that they keep moving along the way of the course? And maybe after they finish the course, have they actually built a self-driving vehicle? No. So you've not actually learned anything. You've not actually completed the task. So you're not going to get the certificate. So coming back to conventional forms of education, and what we're moving towards, and which is quite interesting, is more about blended learning approaches, where you have some face-to-face, some contact. Remember, we went to university not only to actually sit in front of a lecturer and learn from the textbooks. It was actually about meeting people, making networks, traveling, having a good time while you're in school. So it's not always about chalk and talk as what you'd get in front of just listening to a lecturer for a few hours. So, education's not the way, it's not only about theory. It has to be a good balance of having that engagement, being able to travel in the summers for study abroad programs. So I'm not really sure, there's clearly a negative perception towards universities here, and I don't think it's necessarily about that. It's about having an engaging environment for students, having learning, seeing what incubators are doing, seeing what research centers are doing when it comes about thought-provoking research. So I think that's an important thing to look at. We are offering online programs, but it's blended where there is a component of face-to-face, there is a component where the student studies on his own, and there is a component where they work with other students. I mean, if you think about the corporate world, you're not doing it all by yourself. You have a team of people around you, and that's one of the most essential things you can get while you're in university, is to be able to work with different peoples from different parts of the world, the diversity of individuals, characters, and what makes our human resources. We're talking about talent, but it takes a lot of people to form a team to get towards an objective or a task. So you have to remember that as well.
And you take talent wherever you can, as long as it's appropriate, won't you, Ilsa?
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Well, on that positive note, diversity is definitely one of the challenges of working in Africa, and I think one of the rewards of working in Africa. And to that point, Raghav, thank you for joining us from Ghana today. I'd like to thank Ludi for being with us again. Wonderful contributor to education in this industry, and Ilsa, as one of the young up-and-coming executives, your commitment to education is outstanding, so thank you very much. Thank you to you both.
And I'm off to register for $49. My name is Thebe, Ikalafeng. Until next time.
And my name is Gordon Muller. Thank you for joining us.